Welcome back, everyone. I got a real treat for you today. I got Kyle Reedstrom with us from Midwest Invest. Essentially, he is a one-stop shop in the real estate industry and doing a lot of unconventional things that are just different than your normal realtor. So happy to have Kyle on. And what exactly is Midwest, and how is it different than the typical realtor that calls me asking if I want to sell my house?
Yeah, man. So thanks for having me on the show, Josh. I think that this is a fun topic to discuss because there's 1,000 real estate agents in my market of Fargo, North Dakota, and I have like a small town. Like we're only like 250,000 people, right? So it's kind of crazy. And I was part of a larger team for most of the beginning of my real estate career. That's what launched. I was an engineer by trade, civil engineer, and kind of found some stucks there and got into the crazy world of real estate agency. And I was like, okay, I was kind of that generalist. And what we did, I got into real estate because I wanted to invest. It still blows my mind, Josh, when I talk to real estate agents, like a crowd, and of like 100 agents, I'll say like, does anybody, raise your hand if you invest? And it's usually less than 10% of real estate agents actually invest in what they're selling other than their primary home. And it's like, wow, this is literally the time tested, one of the best wealth creation, cash flow creation tools that has existed. But people are, still kind of sitting on the sidelines. So I was always in the game with that. And I started working with a lot of investors. It's funny, at our brokerage, my previous team that I was part of, nobody wanted to work with real estate investors. And I was like, you guys, these real estate investors, if you can talk the talk with them, you can walk the walk a little bit, talk from some experience. They sometimes buy and sell multiple properties a year, and they have to own a primary residence. And sometimes they're making enough and successful enough that they're buying second residences and lake cabins. And so I'm saying like there's number of transactions for investors is much higher than the standard first time home buyer. So I started to work with them. We started to form a brand around these investors called Midwest Invest Realty Group. We can help people buy, sell, build, of course, but we love working with investors and talking about investment real estate.
What is it about these investors you feel deterred realtors from working for them?
I mean, here's the funny part. If I was, and I was when I was an engineer, a client for a real estate agent, I'm not going to say I was an easy client. I think investors have the perception, and probably real, they could be more work. But with more work, there's more victory. So like, I think you just have to navigate, you have to know how to navigate those conversations. I think a lot of investors, if you go by the disc profile, like there's a lot of investors that are high C's that are really detail oriented. And that's because they're trying to run a business. They have a business mindset. So you kind of have to go into it with less emotion, more business. And that's how investors want to be treated. And I think that's where real estate agents really just need to lean into the whole mirror and match thing. I mean, if I have a client that really wants to just know stats and make black and white decisions, that's how I'm going to be. If I have a client that's really new, that's getting in their first investment and they really want to be safe with it, we're going to play into that a little more. And I think it was just a little bit of, man, these investors are all talk. And yeah, I would agree with that. Out of 10 investors, only 2 or 3 will actually take action. There's a lot of analysis paralysis out there, man. And so that's also frustrating for some agents. But hey, that's part of the world we're in. So yeah.
Opportunity is missed by most because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work. And a lot of realtors, I don't care. I'm not saying every realtor. I'll say this for every profession, whether you're a realtor, doctor, financial advisor, car salesman, cashier. There's good ones and then there's bad ones. I mean, that's just the
Yeah.
name of the game, because the barriers to entry to do these jobs nowadays that used to be a
Yeah.
lot tougher are so easy. So pretty much anyone can get into these things. I mean, whenever I'm talking to someone about investing in real estate, I don't know if you use like a formula. I tell them, take whatever income you think you're going to make, cut that in half, just in case you have repairs or what have you. Divide that by the purchase price, and if it's less than 6%, I wouldn't even look at it.
Uh-huh.
And they're like, well, you're not taking into consideration appreciation or this and that. I'm like, I don't, let's not even worry about any of that. Let's just focus on, does it meet this first test? If it meets this first test, then we could start talking about all these other things. And that's
Mm,
something that I don't know. I think I got that from like the White Coat Investor book or something.
yeah.
I can't remember, but it was a good formula and I've been using it ever since I heard about it.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of investors out there, and I think I have to. I'll share this with any agents that might be listening or anybody that's maybe seeing like feeling this pain of, yeah, Kyle, I've worked with investors and I hated it and they sucked and they never bought anything and we had a bad relationship and they were always needing stuff. It's like, okay, how many times have I had a conversation with a real estate investor that came to me with one idea, their vision, and yes, I want to absorb that, I want to listen to that, but because they didn't know our market or they didn't understand exactly what, like, hey, Kyle, I want to buy 12 units. Hey, I want to buy a 12plex. Well, 12plexes don't hit our market MLS every day. In fact, maybe twice a year. A lot of them are traded off market. And so talking about the idea of buying 6 duplexes and starting with one and proving that it can work and how that can be diversified, or creating other vision on how other investors are doing well. I mean, how many people, our market has really done well in the short-term rental space recently and midterm rental. So furnishing investment properties, very unconventional. Fargo, North Dakota, you don't think as an Airbnb destination, but people need short-term stays here that are furnished, that have garages, that have kitchens. And so I can't tell you how many times I've exposed the idea of, hey, what would it look like for you to buy a nicer established home, nicer area, you know, uh, you know, 20, 30 years old, not the classic, 100-year-old college rental, and furnish it. And here's what, because I have to get down to the root. I say, hey, why do you want that 12plex? Well, I want cash flow to start supplementing my income. Okay, well, how much cash flow do you want? Okay, now we get to like a cash on cash or like an actual cash flow number. Well, if there's another investment that can achieve that, we need to talk about that too, if that's truly your goal. But 12plex to you right now is what you think that's going to get you there, where there's other ways, there's unconventional ways.
No doubt. Most people are taking a product based approach with investing. In real estate's no different. They're like, I want this. It's like, well, what's your strategy behind it? And then there's
Yeah.
a long pause, and then they go, well, I don't really have one. It's like, well, we need to figure out what your strategy is and what you're looking to achieve. Then we can figure out where your real estate purchase needs to be. What location? Do you really even need a 12plex? Are you able to handle the maintenance, repairs, everything that goes wrong with something of that magnitude? Do you have a property manager? Are you going to do all of this yourself? Most people are just like, I want the cash flow, I want the passive income. There's nothing passive about owning real estate.
No, 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 no. And I mean, there's a vision for it if you can get to a certain point, but let's just talk real. I mean, I can't tell you how many people, Josh, come to me and say, hey, I want to flip a house, like, especially like, and that was like, I get it. I get it. I was 23 and I said the same thing to a bunch of real estate agents, but I say, why? Why do you want to flip a house? Well, I don't have any cash and I need to get cash. Okay. Well, why do you need cash? Well, then I want to take cash and invest in long-term real estate. Okay. So what you actually want is long-term real estate. Okay, so what would it look like if we were able to find you something that's a solid, stable investment that's making $200, $300, $400 cash flow that you can build on, something that's not massively risky, still risk involved, and then we talk about partnering up to raise the cash and expediting, because you could go get into your flip and you could learn the hard way on a few things and eat up the cash flow you think you're going to make. I mean, I've seen it 100 times. That's the scariest version of real estate investing. And I'm a big fan of hitting a base hit and then hitting another base hit and then maybe hitting a double. And then once you have a few people on base, now you swing for a home run flip project, after you've got a few, a few of those wins under your belt.
I feel like people are better off if you really need money, just like go get a sales job that you could have the potential to make 100,000 when you're
Oh,
young,
dude, I
and
love this
then do
topic.
that, and then do that. I mean, that's how you can
Oh,
get
man.
cash quick. I mean, you can work at a car dealership. I mean, you could probably make $100,000 in 6 months if you really work at it, and then you have
Yep.
your working capital to go do whatever. However, most people don't want to do that because No one's telling you, no one at your university, college is gonna be like, hey, why don't you go work at a car dealership,
Yeah,
Kyle? I
go
know you
do a
have this
sales.
degree in engineering, but if like you really need some money and you don't have access to it, like I would feel like that's actually good advice.
Yeah, Josh, I try not to look in the like the rear view with regret, right? But like if someone would have came up to me in college and said, "Hey, Kyle, you seem like you have more people skills than the normal engineer. Your personality type almost seems that of a sales avatar. Have you ever thought about sales?" If they'd have said, "Why are you in engineering?" I would have answered because the engineers make a lot of money in my head. But actually, a lot of engineers don't make a lot of money. And in the sales world, I'm such a big fan of this right now. There's a lot of people that are talking about Bitcoin. There's a lot of people talking about passive income everywhere you look. It's these internet style ways to create income, but not a lot of people are talking about active income that you can make. Not a lot of people are talking about, hey, if you're a real estate agent, if you lean into your sales business for the next 6 months, you're literally sitting in a rocket ship for income creation. You know what I mean? Like if you're a car salesman, if you're in sales in general, if you really lean in and you can increase your sales by 20, 20, 25, 30, 50%, it is a massive win financially. And there's your extra $30,000 that you were planning on trying to make with this flip in 6 months, you know? And it's like, if we could just talk more about, hey, how can we raise your income potential and then be smart with a budget, be smart with your lifestyle and expenses. And then there's this big nugget that you can use for passive income creation. I truly believe it.
There's so many hidden gems when you go to school for one thing and then you end up doing something completely different. It's like a accidental superpower that you have. And don't go to school for like to be a teacher and you want to make a certain income. Like don't go to like you got to know where you want to go.
Yeah.
In a sales job, you really don't need experience, especially if it's commission only. And that could be a little scary coming out of college. You're like, hey, I need something. Like I have no money. I got my parents aren't helping me out. I'm not in it. Now I have student debt. At the same time, you really now's the time to you can't afford not to take the risk
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah. Now's the time to take the bet. If you look at your life, your life on a timeline, that is actually the best time to take the risk, you know? And it's like after you get down the road a little bit and increase your expenses, and it's like that's when it gets to be a little heavier. But I mean, man, there's such an opportunity for people, especially the right types of people. It's a relationship game. We're humans. If you are someone that is really drawn in and has energy for relationships, like I have 3 kids, I'm really interested when they get to that age to understand if they're really drawn to people and if they really are given energy by that, and to present like, hey, what do you actually want? Because you know a sales career can be so super rewarding because it's in the best salespeople I know are very servant that way. They're very servant leaders, servant salespeople, and it's serving people. It's hard to challenge the happiness gain you can get by giving and serving. I think that's like a secret superpower as well.
It leads to a lot of disappointment, which people can't handle either.
Hmm. True.
That's where it comes in. They
There's
had the one bad
resilience like
experience
crazy.
and our brains are like, well, this didn't work. I'm gonna go on to something else. Versus, you have to give something a few tries to see if it's actually failing because it's not the right fit for you, or failing if you're in the wrong company or in the wrong position for your skills, or is it failing purely because you haven't given it enough time to see whether or not it's gonna work?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the fear of rejection is so real. And getting over that or fighting through that is such a victory, man. And I feel like every salesperson has a story behind that.
Totally. If you are doing something that you actually believe in and you have the best intentions on how to solve people's problems and then create solutions to find answers to those problems, that's really what it's about. And a lot of people just take an approach of they have a script, they stick to the script. The script could be really good. And at the end, they give people a couple different options and they're baiting them essentially to land on one single product in order to make the sale. And that's not what good salespeople do.
I agree. I agree. I
So,
think, yeah, I just feel like, if you're constantly elevating your own game as a person, I mean, I was forced to elevate myself as a person with my personal habits and the way I wanted my personal growth. When I saw growth in those areas is when my sales business started to grow. And it's crazy. It's like, oh man, this is the painful stuff. This is the like figuring myself out stuff. But man, it's all worth it. This is the really the only thing you should be working on. I mean, I think of all these technical skills you can get in academia. And it's like, what about the skills that I literally will carry for the rest of my life? Like how many sales skills, Josh, have made me a better husband? It's like, listening and empathy. And, it's like, wow, this is bigger than just selling a house.
I'm not sure if you dealt with this. I went to school for actuarial science, and I had to learn how to get, this may be the wrong word, I don't care. I had to get dumber. And by that, I mean, I would talk to people and I would fast forward in time. They'd be like, Josh, the first time I met you, man, I was like, what are you even talking about? And I realized when you get to a certain level and you know how things work and you take a certain level of courses that you didn't even know existed in the mathematics or the engineering world, you look at the world a lot different than your normal person. Like whenever I'm turning on the street, I'm like, oh, I'm doing acceleration right now because I'm changing direction. Like I literally think like that. I don't know
Hmm.
if you think like that too, but that's like the way my brain operates. So like, how did you go from an engineering background to transform into more of a normal conversation? Because engineers are very specific and there's no room for error because if you're wrong, a bridge could collapse with a bunch of people on it.
True that. True that. And the interesting thing that I would encourage anybody listening, and again, it kind of ties into what I said before, and it's really, I never had taken a personality test. They don't make you take a personality test when you get to college. And there's a lot of them out there. I think of Acumax, I think of DISC, I think of the Strengths Finder, um, which is Gallup, I think. Like all these were so insightful for me when I finally just leaned into like the results. I was authentically taking the tests, and then the results, I was like, and I was feeling all this pain in my schooling and in my first job. I was feeling all this pain. Like I didn't like it. But it felt like that's what work is. You just work through it. You don't like everything. Everybody just does their job. You do your job and punch the clock. And it's like, this is what everyone does. Right. And, I realized like my personality type was so, I had a leader do this to me actually. He put the personality type of a stereotypical engineer. He put the personality type of a salesperson next to each other, and they had different metrics that were on there. And then he put mine over top of each one, and he said, "Which one of these doesn't look like the other here?" We played that game, and I was like, "Mine looks a lot more like that sales one." Rather than this engine, it's almost the opposite of this engineering one. And granted, everybody's personality can adjust for their environment. And that's what I was doing. I have a lot of those qualities inside me that are like, hey, I like to focus on things. I loved Legos. I'm good at math. These things were like, yeah, that's a good idea to be an engineer, right? But really, the true, authentic sides of me that gave me energy and get me excited were on the other side. And I would encourage anybody listening, like, if you haven't done some of these things, the cool thing is like when you take a job interview, sometimes they make you. And that was an eye opener. If you haven't done any of these things and you haven't learned about yourself and then picked what vocation might be right, man, this is the prompt. Because if I'd have done that, learned about myself a little bit, maybe job shadowed engineers. Now I had engineering internships, but I didn't really shadow an engineer that was in the grind after school. Then I'd have shadowed some salespeople. I'd have been like, I think I'm really drawn to that lifestyle, even though it's a little more chaotic and a little less structured and a little more unknowns. I get energy from that, And so it took me about 3 weeks at my first job out of college to realize, Josh, like I was like, oh shoot, I just spent 5 years getting my engineering degree and I don't think I'm going to do this my whole life. What am I going to tell my parents? I had all these things, but then 3 weeks in, I knew that. And then I just came to this peace with it. And I stuck it out for 2 years in that job that I didn't like, but I used my time to make calculated decisions and start investing in real estate as an engineer. Because guess what? When you have an engineer's salary, stable, consistent, banks are really, really fond of that. That you walk into a bank, they're like, hey, we like this. You walk in as a salesperson, they're like, oh, risky. So I used that to my advantage and bought my first few rental properties and then I finally made a calculated decision, got my real estate license and made the switch. So it was early on after college, I knew, but again, I kind of used my time in my current position to cast vision and make some good decisions before I made the jump. Now, some people I know literally had the epiphany and they said, I'm out. They walked out the next day. I'm not advising either way, but I did have a business coach recently tell me, Josh, stop thinking in 1 year and 3 year visions and start thinking in decades and start doing activities and making decisions based on what it's going to look like 10 years from now. If you're doing things today that you don't think you're going to be doing in 10 years, could you ask yourself the question, should I be doing these things? Do these things last? Do these things get me to where I need to be in 10 years? And it starts to divide the room a little bit on what activities matter and what might not. And that's been, I encourage a lot of investors that are just kind of like in that first, like, hey, I just want to get one and see where it goes. I'm a big proponent of casting some vision. Yes, I think getting into the action is important, but man, if you can spend some time and be like, hey, these are the things that are going to get me to where I want to be in 10 years. This activity I'm doing in March of 2024 helps 2034 Kyle and his family. I know I'm doing the right thing.
When people buy a house, this is just a random question. I want to get your thoughts on it. When people buy like a primary house, not a rental, not anything that's like an investment property, just a house to live in. Do you ever think people consider how much time they're going to spend on that house that's taking away from other things they could be doing?
Oh, dude, I feel like the generation below us, below me at least, Gen Zs, um, I feel like they're actually thinking about it for the first time in like the last 3 generations. I feel like they're like, I don't want to mow my lawn. I don't want to do these things that are like, buck up. This is the pride and joy, mowing your lawn after work. It's like, they're just like, I think that I can live cheaply and have a lot of autonomy and freedom. And it's like really messing with like millennials and definitely like baby boomer generations of like, hey, you guys aren't working hard and doing the American dream. It's like, dude, they're doing their version of it. And I think it's super challenging, or it's challenging the norm is what I mean. So I love it.
Yeah, and that's a thing. People don't place a value on their time a lot when it comes to starting a business, or a lot of people, real estate has become super popular because it's mainstream now. And they're like, oh, I want to do that. However, you got to get in where you fit in, like you did. You went to school for the engineering background. However, you realized you could take those skills and transform it into a successful sales career. And you're going to be a lot different than every other person that you talk to, which is actually going to help you be different. And people like things that are different because it makes you unique in your space. And to me, it seems like that's where people are missing on investing. And I don't know if you've heard this. I think I said this before. But like the reason Warren Buffett invests in other companies is because he said it's too hard to start one from scratch.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. There's a lot of wisdom in that, man.
So if you're gonna start something, you better make sure it's something you actually want to be doing and it's something that you're passionate about. Because every minute you spend on something that you hate doing, you are essentially robbing yourself of being happy.
Mm. Yeah, and momentum's a crazy thing. Like I'm an engineer, there's actually an equation for momentum, and it's force or like weight times velocity, right? So like if you have a really heavy thing moving at a fast pace, it's going to have a lot of momentum. But again, in business, as humans, if you are constantly in a place, an environment that is not helping you speed up your momentum, or it's like you have momentum going into the week and then slowly you lose all your momentum by Friday and you have to go pick yourself up, that's exhausting. No
Mm-hmm.
wonder you're tired. No wonder you're stressed. No wonder you need 8 cups of coffee a day. No wonder you have to pound Monster Energy. No wonder you have to like zone out on the TV or video games or whatever, the medications are these days that people want to just escapism. It's because you're constantly toying with this concept of like, I was doing something I like and now I'm doing something I hate. Like, man, that's such an indicator. There are plenty of people, if you spend time, that actually get up and they look forward to Monday. They get up, they have a lifestyle where maybe they even work a little weekends, they work a little bit in the week. It's one of the things that I love about real estate and a lot of people in our office. I always call it a lifestyle business. We don't have on and off times. I'm just working all the time, but I'm also not working all the time, and it's just like, hey, I might be grinding this Saturday. I'm actually hosting an event. But you know what? On Tuesday, I might make my family breakfast and spend the whole morning with my family and just like take time off, and it's like, I'm just going to follow things that are my priorities. I'm going to follow things that have energy for me. And that's not saying I only do the things that I like to do, because there's a lot of work that needs to get done that is in alignment with my vision, and my vision for our family and for our businesses that needs to get done. And as long as those are clear and I can achieve those things, then I can continue to just enjoy. And I think every human is built for progress, right, Josh? I think everybody that has a mission, that's on a mission, even if picking up garbage as my job or picking up dog poop, I like that analogy. If I had to pick up dog poop every day, all day long, but it 100% fulfilled the vision that was getting me there, and I was focused on, hey, this is where this is getting me, I'd be the happiest dog poop picker upper there is, because I know where it's gonna lead me. And so it's like, hey, if I don't have that end goal that really gets me excited, that why, a lot of people use that term, I'm just gonna be floundering, man.
Sticking to math and science, if you have no acceleration in your life, you're getting no force out of your life. That's the mathematical mass acceleration equals force. So essentially, if you're going at the same speed, you're going 30 miles an hour, constant, you're just coasting, that's zero. So you got to realize in your life that without any acceleration, you're actually not making any progress. I mean, you're coasting along, and it sucks. A lot of people just live their lives that way. However, some people just get stuck because they don't know what to do, and they're listening to the wrong people, getting the wrong advice online, or they take a course or a seminar. I've heard people paying a lot of money for a real estate seminar, 10, 20, 30 grand. And then it's like, yo, there was your money to go do something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I
So
mean, think of that. It's crazy because we're on a podcast right now, and I'm a big podcast listener. I love to read and everything. But if we don't tie action to these things, you know what an easy check is for you to get some acceleration in your life? Go do something. Screw it up. Fail. Like literally surprise yourself. I was telling the story the other day about how I bought 2 fourplexes, one of my first investments ever. When I was young, didn't know what I was doing, overpaid for these things by, $80 to $100,000. I overpaid if I look back. Like, it was, so many people could have looked and said that was ridiculously stupid. But what I did was I put myself in a position to make that into a win. I still own those today, and they're massively successful because I had to force myself to have to turn all the dials it took to make that thing actually make sense. And so it's like, hey, the action involved with that actually gave me momentum in a weird way, even by making a horrible investment decision. But guess what? The best thing about real estate is time is on your side, you know? So,
yeah, money, they just make more of it if they need it. And people are like, I always get people like, oh, older people are like, oh, is Social Security going to be here? I was like, well, if they run out of money, they'll just make more of it. And people don't realize that. People realize it a little bit more after everything that happened, like with inflation and money printing, to actually see it in real time. It's happening every single year, whether you realize it or not. So essentially, when you lost that money on that investment, you definitely paid attention to that mistake. And on the flip side, if you didn't make that mistake, how much less money could have you made? Because you've been like, oh, I know what I'm doing. And then you could have made a bigger mistake down the road because you had a false positive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, 100%. Like that was probably the best investing lesson I could have ever asked for. Talk about going to investing school. That was my school, you know? And I mean, that's the thing. There's a lot of information out there that can stun you into trying to make the perfect play. But I got a lot of people I know that don't read any books, and they might not be considered the smart guy in the room, but they go a full bore into some investment and they just muscle their way into making it successful because they just took action and made the right adjustments. And I think there's just as much value in that.
Yeah, you practice, but you got to still play the game. You can't just be
Yeah.
practicing all the time. You got to go test how well you've practiced, because when the pressure is on you and you're in the game, that's when you go back to whatever level that you're at. You're otherwise you're gonna end up making mistakes, overlooking things, doing just not smart things.
I love the idea of there was a book that outlined this that was like the nurse that was, you know, an IV nurse and putting an IV in someone's arm. Like there's a lot of like maybe fear for nurses in school about like, I've got to put a needle in someone's vein today, you know? And there was two ideas here. There was the nurse that was reading all the books on how to perfectly do it. And then there was the nurse that just jumped in. And by the time she was done reading all the books, this nurse had done 100 of them. And then it came to you as a patient. Who would you want to put the IV in your arm? The nurse that, you know, has done 100 now in the same time frame that she's read all the books and knows exactly how to do it. It's like, I don't think I'd want to be her first. You know, I'd rather be the one over here that's been doing the work, you know. And it's like, man, I feel like some of us get caught in that. We get caught with these shows we like. The beauty, I always call it a pendulum. Like, yes, you should be listening to things that are very applicable to you, but they should be applicable to things you're taking action in. If you find yourself listening to something that you're not currently taking action in, either that's your prompt to your next step to get action going in that department, or you need to stop tuning in and do, you know, you are doing action in other things. Maybe you should listen to that topic matter, you know?
100%. And with your organization, what was it about the real estate market that made you decide to start your company that's different compared to everyone else? Let's bring everything full circle here.
Yeah, I love the concept of the riches are in the niches. And I think a lot of real estate agents just want to be generalists. Now, I sit here and say that knowing that I have clients that are buying, I have sellers, I have people that are building. I do all the things that there are in real estate. We actually have a property management company as well, you know, but we branded around investors specifically because we said, hey, we want to be the go-to for someone that wants to really, we branded around first-time investors. We love working with house hackers, people that want to get into their first real estate investment with a house hack, which if you don't know about house hacking, what an amazing concept for you to start on the journey with low money in. And so we were like, hey, this gets us excited. What if we leaned into just this demographic and just put our marketing towards those efforts instead of saying, hey, if you're looking to buy, sell, let me know. You know, it's more like, hey, if you're looking to invest in real estate, here's where you come. And the cool part is everybody in our office really aligned with the brand because all of us are doing that. All of us have a vision for investing as real estate agents. And so we really it was an easy way for us to live our values and live our brand by getting into our own niche style real estate. So it was kind of birthed out of you know, it's like I really enjoy I really enjoy Mexican food. Like I'm a big fan. You know, so for me to go and start a pizza shop that's maybe more profitable or even, you know, a better business model, it's like, hey, that's not truly authentic. I'm just, you know, I have eventually have a dilemma there. Whereas for investing, Midwest Invest, it's fun because we're literally doing it as we're helping other people do it. And so I don't think there's any better form of credibility and authenticity.
What if you created a Mexican restaurant that specialized in Mexican pizza?
There it is. That's my version of it. Yeah. I mean, that's the tweaks, man. But it would still be in alignment with my true being and my true passions and interests. So
Yeah, just gotta get creative. And uh, curiosity, curiously, North Dakota, what's real estate like up there? I've never been.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Well, so yeah, North Dakota's a little cold. We actually got snow last night, but we've had a very good winter. Um, the cool part about Fargo, I always say Fargo, North Dakota, which is right in the east side of North Dakota as a state. We're kind of close to Minnesota. We're in a bubble. We're in this little real estate bubble. I love looking back at the statistics of our market for the last 20 years, which includes 2008. During the 2008, 2009 financial crisis, the appreciation of Fargo barely flatlined, but it didn't dip. But we don't get these huge peaks either. We've got this steady 2.7% appreciation on home values in Fargo. Some of our upcoming areas, new construction areas are more like 5, but we're not these fun areas like Minneapolis and Denver and Austin, Texas that are getting 50, 60% appreciation in certain areas. That's really when the real estate market's going crazy, people are like, look at these markets, they're going crazy. I bought this house 2 years ago for 450 and now it's worth 850. It's like, that's not happening in Fargo. But I tell you what is happening. Everybody that I've sold houses to over the last 9 years, even if they bought last year, their house is worth more than it was the year before. And we just have this cool predictability. And it's been really fun to be an investor in this market for that reason, because I can almost have a crystal ball where my investment properties are headed. And it's just literally it's remained true. Whereas I think a lot of other markets kind of have to jockey and time the market. So it's been a fun area. There's a lot of people coming to our area, like many of these cities. We're kind of the metro for healthcare and education in our region. And we've got a lot of we got a lot of land, as you can imagine. So we get a lot of new construction. We've got a lot of new areas, new developments where people can build houses affordably for around $300,000.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's just it's a fun market to be a part of. Because yeah, I think the stat for Fargo is 56% of the population in Fargo is a renter. So we have a lot of first time buyers. So we have more renters than owners in Fargo. There's a lot of apartments in Fargo. People have said that.
And it all goes back to what we spoke about at the beginning, is having a strategy and being able to position yourself to take advantage of the opportunities as they come up. So it's like, hey, I'm looking for the next Bitcoin, or I mean, if you're always just searching for the next big thing, you're typically not going to find it. Most people that owned Bitcoin before anyone knew about it were just like, yeah, I'm gonna put some money in this and see what happens. And then they woke up one day and were like, holy crap. And I've been doing a lot of research on Warren Buffett, and there's a lot of things that can't figure out. The one thing I did figure out is, how did he get returns to be so good over time? The goal of his investment strategy is to actually do worse than the market in the good years, but better in the bad years. And that's what seems like is happening in Fargo, meaning like, hey, if there's a correction, like your home in Austin, Texas could go right back down to what you paid for it if there's some sort of major correction. Or let's just say there's a big hailstorm in Texas and then all these insurance carriers pull out. Now all of your prices go up. That's what happened in Florida. And a lot of people are not happy about that because of the hurricanes and shenanigans people did with, oh, like you have roof damage. Let's give you a new roof. You're not going to have to pay for it. Well, now everyone's paying for it. Have you ever heard
Yeah.
about that?
Oh yeah. Like the insurance world. I mean, my insurance agent literally called it insurance fraud, because it used to be, how did he say this? It used to be that you'd have insurance for you insure yourself so you don't have a bad life. And what people are doing now is, I insure myself so I don't have a bad day. It's like, that's not the concept of insurance. The idea of insurance was originally like, hey, if my house burned down, I'm financially done. Where's my, like, but now it's, I got a rock chip in the side of my car, I'm going to file an insurance claim, and it's like, man, that's what I think what's going to happen in the insurance world, Josh, is there's going to be these insurance companies can't make money anymore. And there's going to be higher deductible. If you won't be able to afford low deductible premiums, you're going to have to crank up your deductibles to 5,000, 10,000. And what that looks like is you're self-insuring. You need an emergency fund for that. If your deductible on your car is 10 grand, you're going to need an emergency fund. And half of the, more than half of Americans don't have more than $1,000 in their savings account. So it's like, man, I actually think it's going to be another healthy twist because of how they have to do it,
Mm-hmm. And people don't think about it is like, if you actually have if you have a higher deductible, your premiums are lower.
Yeah.
So what's the difference there? How much could you be saving? I mean, is it $50, $100? I don't know. And ultimately, like, don't sweat the small stuff. Like, you're driving a car around town, like, it's gonna get beat up. Your house is gonna get beat up over time. Like, don't sweat the small stuff just because you get a little just because I get a scratch on my face doesn't mean I'm like never gonna go outside again.
Yeah. And I mean, there's more ownership. I mean, that's just where we need more as a society, in my opinion. But like, one of the stories my insurance agent told was Minnesota actually has one of the largest cases ever of insurance fraud. There was like a network of drivers that were purposefully, sliding into having people slide into the back end of their vehicles and creating accidents so they could get, they were creating ROI from insurance claims because, costs were going up and you're making money on when the cost of used cars is higher than the one you bought for, it's like this crazy sneaky scheme. And it's like, hey, because of that, the whole industry is hurting now. You know what I mean? Like, how many times does a roof get hailed out? And the roof definitely has hail marks, but does it need to be replaced with a brand new $15,000 roof? That's the interesting part of this. And if people had more like $7,500 on the line instead of 1,000, I think they would maybe make the decision like, hey, my roof's okay. It's not leaking.
Well, most people to get the roofer out there is like, hey man, like, can I just give you $100 and you just nail in some shingles for me? Can you fix it?
Mm-hmm.
But most people don't think that way. And I don't know if it's like an entitlement thing, or if it's like a I feel like it's more of a poor mindset, like POOR mindset, not a
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, like I pay my premiums, I'm gonna file a claim. That's the first thing people say when you get like an offender bender, versus like, you know what, like I could get this buffed out. Let's just trade info, and if I need something, I'll call you. I got your plate. I got this. I got that. Like, you don't even really need to have like a police report or anything, but people are wasting the police's time on not important things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's and yeah, it's going to be a new world when it comes to insurance premiums, man. We're seeing that on our investment properties, and we're having the conversations about higher deductibles, so yeah, it's happening.
Is there anything else in the real estate market that you've seen that isn't mainstream right now, other than realtors maybe making a lot less money?
Yeah. How about that topic? That's every podcast out there's talking about that right now, which is really interesting. And good for people to know. And it's hot right now. I don't know how long it'll last. Maybe it'll stay in the headlines, but um, one of the things I'm really passionate about, Josh, that I've really spent a lot of energy now moving away from, I had a whole podcast on passive income. And what I found was everybody listening wasn't acting on the content. Like, we would have a great guest on that had this amazing passive income opportunity, like truly passive, like something investing, but you needed money. And the idea of investing without money was something that my listeners had talked about. But I was like, what about the idea of like making money, saving money, and having money to help you make more money? That's what investing is. Like, that's the definition. So I really got passionate about, hey, I actually need to help my listeners make more active income. I need to help them raise the bridge of their income. So I got more into like, hey, let's actually get into this active income thing, and specifically for real estate agents, because I really believe real estate agents have this opportunity, if they lean in, to create wealth. I'll say this: create income very fast. And if you do it right, you can start pouring that into wealth building opportunities. And so I've gotten extremely passionate about helping real estate agents get their business honed in, especially with the market jockeying like this a little bit. Like, what a great time for you to take market share And one of the ways to do that is helping high producing real estate agents get more of their time back and get out of those low dollar an hour activities. Um, End of last year, I was playing around a lot with leverage and virtual assistants. And I made the decision to hire a company. It's a company I partner with called Time Rich. And we're kind of working on literally a protocol for the time rich real estate agent, the time rich agent, because I onboarded with them, and I now have my email inbox completely managed by a virtual assistant. And if I'd have said this a year ago, I would have been like, no, dude, that's not going to work for me. I was spending 2 to 3 hours a day in my inbox because, I do a lot of real estate
What? That's crazy.
transactions. Yeah. I mean, I have probably 100, 150 emails a day, right? It's not people have more, but it was like, hey, these need attention. Well, there was a shift that, I had a broken mindset with that. I was able to partner and leverage for my inbox to be managed 3 times a day. Someone goes in and filters and even responds to certain emails. And now I'm spending less than probably an hour a week in my inbox. And it's completely freed up time for me. And I really think that's some of the keys for real estate agents to get their time back so they can stay in the income producing activities.
Yeah, now when I look at spending money on something, if I'm spending money on something and I still have to invest time, I'm going to highly consider not doing it, because the reason I put money into things is so I either don't have to do them or it's going to make my life easier. I'm not like here to take a course. I'm here to pay someone else to do it so that way I don't have to. And obviously, how much has that helped you over the last 365 days with those virtual assistants?
Yeah, man. And it was one of those things I knew I was doing. I knew I was spending too much time on these emails that are kind of repetitious. And so I was like, okay, I had the pain. I actually did a time audit. I saw it on my timesheet that it was coming up how many times I was answering email early in the morning, late at night. It's like, okay, there's got to be a better way. And so TimeRich they've created a specific system for that and beyond. They even have virtual assistants for things like calendar management, marketing, social media. They have one for even getting to be guests on podcasts. There's all these cool things that you can have working for you to keep you in the right seat.
That's how I got you on this podcast. I automated it.
Nice, man. That's awesome. That's perfect.
Automated it, send a message. It's just a numbers game for something like this. Most people are not going to respond, and that's okay. However, you got to send out as many messages as possible, and it's impossible to do manually. I mean, one thing I use on as an extension is it's called Magical. So I've created hotkeys for certain things, and you can do this on like your iPhone or a phone too. You can like have hotkeys for like messages, so that way you don't have to keep typing the same thing over and over. So if I need to do a follow-up message, I literally just type follow-up message and then the shift 2, and then the whole thing comes up. And then now with the AI, it has blocks, and in those blocks I can change the name. I can say, hey, instead of helping you with retirement, we're helping you with taxes. And then you customize it. You still have to have checks and balances. You can't automate it fully, otherwise you're going to lose the human element to it.
Yes,
And it makes a world of difference. I mean, that's why so many people use Amazon. Is like, I don't have to go to a store.
100%. Yeah. And I think you hit it on the head too. I kept thinking I didn't want to do this because it's not authentic. There is a version of authenticity with also having leverage in automation. And that's the glass I had to break, and it's true. I mean, I do it and it's been extremely beneficial, and nothing has dropped off for me. People are getting responses faster than if I was managing it myself in a lot of cases. So
increasing the acceleration allows you to hit the target a lot faster than if you're just treading water. So this was a lot of fun. Happy to have you on. Had a lot of great nuggets, and we'll see everyone next time. Bye, everyone.